Some people leave helpful comments on my videos giving me useful tips or constructively criticizing my approach. Some people leave comments telling me to turn off reflex mode or that I failed the challenge because I had reflex mode on. I'm gonna let them keep commenting that because it boosts the algorithm attention for the video. And some people are very anal reticular about the stealth in this game. Some people take the tactical espionage and stealth simulator aspect very seriously, and hate it when I get combat alerts or break stealth, despite that being the entire second half of the design of combat and a built-in means of progression in Metal Gear Solid. And modes like Total Stealth and European Extreme Mode are more additional challenges and not the intended way to play the game as a base experience. If you are one of those people, thank you for stopping by, but this video probably isn't for you. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Can You Beat Metal Gear Solid 5 as Gray Fox. This one was one I didn't expect for a lot of people to care about that much, but immediately after the Raiden video, tons of people started asking me when the Gray Fox run was coming, so I hope I don't disappoint here, and I hope ye enjoy. So, what are the rules for the run? Well, obviously I have to play as Frank for the entire run, though maybe it's not Frank since the Metal Gear Solid 1 Snake model is the one under the mask?
I like you. I have no name.
Whatever, I gotta be Cyborg Ninja for the whole run, and can only use the following equipment. Stealth camo, an HF blade, a laser gun arm, a portable Vulcan cannon, a machete, and a MAC-10 with a suppressor, which is a ZEV in this game. Now, when looking at this list, you'll see every piece of equipment we've seen Gray Fox use. His camo when he goes around chopping people up like a horror movie villain.
What? My hand!
The HF blade he uses to do it. The laser gun arm he uses to fight the Metal Gear. The portable Vulcan cannon he uses instead in the novelization of MGS1, and the machete and MAC-10 he uses as Null, the perfect soldier. Did you notice anything interesting about the list? Well, since I'm not going to use the D-Walker minigun or the Skull Machete, the closest things to the Vulcan cannon and machete respectively, that reduces our actual equipment list to this. Just a basic 1-star ZEV with a suppressor, since you guys liked it when I used the lore-accurate upgrades for the Solid Snake run, and didn't like it when I used fully upgraded equipment in the Naked Snake and Big Boss runs, and stealth camo. So, no explosives, just one gun, and a cyborg fistful of dreams. Now that you know to expect a real challenge, let's hop into it. After Ocelot teases me with water because of my prosthetic hand, something I'll definitely get him back for one day,
What?
I dismount D-Horse and try to be clever by just heading straight to where Miller is, but I only kinda tried, not even bothering to pull up the map, and ended up at the communication outpost, where I proceeded to take out every soldier stationed there with my bare hands and get Miller's location from some intel files as a reward, which I thought was pretty cool because I didn't even know that these were here or that you could do that. Then the medication takes over.
What? Not again. What's happening? I'm losing myself.
And my stupid ass runs all the way to Vilo Village for literally no reason because I already have what I would have needed from there, and I had to run all the way back just because I wasn't paying attention. Upon getting to Guandé, I just ran straight in, stealth camo through the camp until getting caught with the camo inactive at the worst possible time, and proceeded to bum rush Miller and sprint away. This time, I tried to fight the skulls, something I thought would be the most Gray Fox approach, But while me killing them or me dying would make no difference to me, I didn't account for them just teleporting to Miller and savagely gunning him down. Now that the run is over, I know that if I had just placed Miller at my feet, they would have fought with me, but I kept trying to hide him and they kept just magically teleporting to where he was and killing him, so I just ran away. Next time, Skulls. Next time. A Hero's Way took 7 whole ass minutes since I literally just used the Grey Fox textbook approach minus the HF blade. Run in, stealth camo, take everyone out with CQC, take down the commander, and give him a Colombian necktie. Exfil in broad daylight was as easy as the infill with my camo, and I was onto the comms post I had already taken out once so far. Stealth camo in, take out the comms equipment with the silenced MAC-10, stealth camo out, done in 5 minutes. The mission to save the Bionics engineer was the first one where I actually faced enough difficulty to warrant using the MAC-10 against enemies, but only a fool would trust his life to a weapon. When I tried to only use CQC, I was able to take out everyone from the LZ to the entrance of the camp just fine, but when I got there I saw one guy, didn't think much of it, and went to attack, not taking the moment to look and see if he had a ton of backup with automatic weapons, which he did, and that mistake cost me that attempt. What I should have done there was CQC to the camp and then stealth camo in and out with the dock, but shoulda coulda woulda. After a bunch of attempts of not being able to capture that original magic, I shot this lookout, the one that gave most of my runs trouble, this lookout to avoid being spotted by the soldier across from him, which had happened in prior runs, and the guy himself, cause fuck that guy. After narrowly avoiding detection one last time, I stealth camo in, grabbed the dock in lieu of using the wormhole Fulton, killed this guy with the MAC-10 since I was too scared to risk throwing the dock at him, and made it out with suppressor to spare, even with a 1-star silencer. Word of the Beast Sleep had some tricky parts, like saving the hostage at the mountain relay base, or even getting to him for that matter, and I even failed on one attempt where I got this really cool cutscene with the hostage that I don't think I've ever seen before, but they literally saw me despite being invisible. That said, the very next attempt, I just did the same thing but skipped the cutscene and Fultoned him out, with it being much more irresponsible and risky to try to carry him out rather than Fulton, or so I tell myself. After stealth camoing my way into Samasi Fort and getting the honeybee, I get monologued at by this ugly-ass liquid snake, I'm your other half snake wannabe, and the fight with the skulls begins. Now, the always appreciated Kovac00 recommended for this run that I try to get a CQC attack on each of the different skulls, because the idea of CQC against the skulls and the animations themselves fit Grey Fox's personality, but the moment that I saw that this run would essentially be a CQC only run with one caveat all the way back on May 19th of last year, when I first planned for this run, the only thing I knew for real was that I was going to defeat all the skulls only using CQC. So here are the highlights of Grey Fox vs. the Mist Skulls, Round 1.
Hand to hand, it is the basis of all combat.
The first couple of attempts were a bit rocky because beating the skulls like this takes so long and I've never actually done it before, so I didn't really understand the fight or know the timing, but after a couple of goes, I realized two things. One, when they attack, they usually only attack in pairs as long as you don't attack the others on standby, and two, all the skulls only have about 3 different melee attacks they can use with differing timing across the 3, so as long as you play their game of 2 at a time, avoid the zombies, and get the timing of the CQC prompts down, and you're willing to throw anywhere between 20 to 40 minutes at a single fight, it's surprisingly easy. Every now and then they'd cover the area with mist and attack from the fog, something kinda scary because of the low visibility, but I loved these moments because if I was able to avoid the zombies that they summoned, they would only attack with melee, so I could focus on countering them without having to worry about them busting out a blicky. By the end of the fight, I didn't have the timing of all the attacks mastered, and when you miss a CQC counter, they switch to their guns. But all in all, it was a fun and exhilarating experience, and something Gray Fox definitely would have loved. After that grand battle, Red Brass was a joke. I just chased down the 3 red shell Koopas and killed them with little regard for stealth. Onto Occupation Forces, this was probably one of the most scuffed missions in the run. I basically just ran into the fort, used the Veil of a Sandstorm to hide and get the intel file, run out and take out anyone along the way that spotted me, and then come the tanks. Now, being that I don't have any explosives, the only real way to get rid of them is by Fultoning them. But how could I Fulton moving tanks? Well, here's the scuffed-ass plan I came up with. In the last run, I accidentally got into the bed of the Colonel's truck, so this time, I literally just jumped into the truck bed while somehow not getting spotted and rode with them until they stopped. After about 10 minutes, we arrive at Samase Fort, and then I've got to figure out how to snag the tanks and take out the Colonel without getting blown away. I go through a bit of trial and error, but eventually I blow the Colonel's head off from the bed of the truck, take the rear tank, and stealth my way over to the last tank and Fulton it as well. I was worried about BUBD, but came up with a pretty nifty idea. Since, in the novelization of Metal Gear Solid 1, Gray Fox used a portable Vulcan cannon instead of a laser gun, I had my chopper land at the LZ nearest to the exit and used my side door gun, the closest thing to a Vulcan cannon I have, to take out all the armored vehicles. In all, I only missed one of the original batch because I used my chopper to rescue the Soviets prisoner, so I tried to Fulton the last 2, but one noticed me and got away. Still though, that takes us to Angel with Broken Wings. Like I said in the last MGSV run, this time I saved all the prisoners and got another intel document I've never even seen before at La Marcajate, before heading to the Yako Obu supply outpost and pretty easily saving Malik, all things considered. Unfortunately, it seems that I missed a prisoner, but still, at least the mission played out mostly how I wanted it to. Now to take on Quiet. I tried to take her out with only CQC, and while it took a while to figure out how she works, apparently she's deaf as shit. Because as long as she doesn't see you, you can do whatever you want. Eventually, after a bit of back and forth and a couple of attempts, I punch her and kick her in the head hard enough to take her out. Just gonna put this out there, and I expect this to be a bit controversial because of recency bias, but I think that even Gray Fox, let alone Raiden or any of the Winds of Destruction, could wipe out any of the bosses in this game easily. That's the Skulls, Quiet, Volgan, Sahel, all of them. Alright, now to save this bitch. Using my MAC-10, I basically ran straight out of the base, and though the enemy gunship caught me the first time around, I was able to get it right and run all the way to the central base camp. Making it to Huey was about as easy as it will be to make it to Hal a couple decades from now, and I just ran back to the entrance, MAC-10ing anyone that spotted me. It was easy enough to give Sahel the slip, and after I gunned him down, I've successfully captured my starter Pokemon, Piss Boy. Finally making it to Mafinda, I blitz past Masa Village because all the child soldiers remind me of, well, me, and I was able to use my stealth camo to sneak to the pump and turn it off. Problem though, I tried to blow up the tank with my MAC-10, but it wasn't strong enough to take it out, so I had to use a bombardment. Not how I'd have liked that to go, but mission accomplished as best as possible to my knowledge. On the Viscount mission, because the translator route is still fresh in my memory from 2 months ago, I save all the non-Viscount targets while following the translator, and then killed the translator and went out after the Viscount myself. I grabbed him and exfiltrated, moving on to Footprints of Phantoms, where I very easily slipped into the Ditani camp and Fultoned all the walker gears. Exfil was a little messier than that, but I just sprinted away and started the next battle against the Skulls in Trader's Caravan. I headed straight to Nova Braga and began the fight. Due to the armor of these Skulls, the fight took an incredible hour and a half. But after about a half hour of trying to figure out the timing and attack patterns of the melee attacks of the skulls while avoiding their occasional shooting and their rock throwing every 5 seconds, I found a pretty fucking sweet tactic. There's a little squared off spot in the area where, if you stand there, you'll be protected from their gunfire and rocks and pretty much only have to deal with their melee attacks. So I spent the rest of the fight standing there, learning their timing and patterns, and here's what I found out. These guys have 3 attacks. A fast right-hand horizontal swing typically while standing to your left, a delayed left-to-right horizontal swing typically standing on your right, and a jumping downward slash or stab. You've got to be fast when reacting to which attack it is because, if it's the fast slash, you've got to counter a half second after he teleports, but if it's the delayed slash, you have to wait for the prompt a second after the teleport and then counter. Too slow on the fast slash, you get hit and, best case scenario, you have to wait a minute or 2 for the skull to stop shooting at you, maybe wait for a rock throw since all skulls disengage from combat during a rock throw to avoid friendly fire, and then you can try again, or worst case scenario, he armors up. Too fast on the delayed slash, same consequences apply. The downward teleporting slash is the easiest to counter because it's the only attack from above, so it's easy to read, and the counter timing is very forgiving. It's also worth noting that they typically follow a pattern of slash attack to downward stab, so as long as you counter the slash from the first attacker, you're almost guaranteed to counter the downward stab that you know is coming. I would miss a couple prompts every now and then, and I hadn't completely mastered CQC here, but by 45 minutes in, I could string together back-to-back CQCs for like a minute straight. Eventually, after about an hour, I took down the first of the 4 skulls, but being that I'd been chipping away at 2 others this whole time, it was only maybe 15 more minutes before I'd taken down 2 more, leaving just me and 1 more skull. Poor guy was already at half health, and him being alone definitely did not help him. He got bullied, and I completed the mission first try. After that, it took all of 4 minutes for me to save the first of my guys being captured by the CFA, but the guy I usually save first, the guy in the jungle, was a serious pain in the ass this time for some reason. Mainly all the armor bros, I guess, since I can't CQC them as easily with all the terrain and roots blocking me. Eventually I take out this tanky, I get my guy, and I get the hell out of there. Time to save Mbele squad, and without any non-lethal equipment, I've got to play out the whole mission. I decide to go after the kids first, not thinking about the fact that I'll need a chopper to get them out, but won't be able to leave with them and that I'll have to go back, take care of the adult, and then exfiltrate somehow, but getting to the kids was as easy as always. Getting them out, however, is more difficult. Especially when you're an impatient asshole like me, you barely stealth, the kids are deaf, and they're slow as molasses. A couple of attempts got me to respect having to stick with them, and getting them out from there was a cakewalk. With the kids safe, I begrudgingly head back to Black Beret Guy and just kill him and take off while invisible.
You're so sweet.
With On the Trail, I just ran after the truck the whole time before finding the Major and gunning him and his guys down. Voices, however, wasn't so easy. After dispatching all the guards around the Devil's house, I went in, assassinated my target, failed to save Chewbacca, and faced off with Vulcan, who I'm very sad you can't CQC his ass. Luckily, things were simple from here, and I just dropped a water tower on his ass and then gunned him down with my Vulcan cannon as I was exfiltrating. I give the boys Chewie's necklace in hopes that I might be able to become the leader of their child soldier friend group, and after they say they'll call me, they won't. I'm off to Nova Braga to see a CFA official. For the first time maybe ever, I almost got spotted by a camera, but that's the most eventful thing that happens to me on this mission, though unfortunately the official can't say the same thing. The base infiltration mission was another pain in the ass because I had zero respect for it and just kept trying to rush it, but in case you're waiting for me to learn a lesson and respect the stealth element of this game, don't hold your breath, because I just stealth camoed and rushed, killing the commander and moving on. White Mamba was one I was expecting to be harder than usual, but it was honestly pretty easy just running to Eli, following him around, and beating his ass while avoiding gunfire. Feels good to beat Liquid's ass while I can, because he's gonna send me back to hell the next time we meet, but I won't go down without a fight. Well, maybe I'll just beat up on him a little bit more while this lasts. Okay, enough fun. Back to the field with close contact, where I gotta save 2 goobers, which I do easily in a whopping 5 minutes and escape with no issues. Aim True's another walk in the park that I initially thought was going to be way harder because of no non-lethals to use against the children, but just running up to them and beating their asses was a shockingly efficient strategy, with my beating the mission in another 5 minutes. Hunting down the trafficker was probably the easiest it's ever been, as I figured out what direction and area they come from in the last run, so I stealth camoed, walked up, blew his head off, and left, all in, you guessed it, 5 minutes. Rescuing the intel team member definitely benefited from Gray Fox's speed, as I grabbed him before he could get into the truck and was able to save him and move on to the last actually challenging mission, and the last of the new skulls, Code Talker. It would be hard to put into words how difficult it was to beat the sniper skulls with only CQC, but I think this adequately gets the point across.
What's happening?
I'm losing myself.
After just shy of an hour of trying to beat them only using counterattacks and seeing that that just wasn't going to happen, contemplating running away, using the MAC-10, or giving up all the while, I finally figured that I would just try to beat them like I beat Quiet, with CQC, and that I would just counter them whenever the opportunity afforded me to. After another hour of listening to Give Me an Answer with Ask Cliff, and systematically hunting each of the sniper skulls down and CQCing them, figuring out their patterns, finding their weak spots, duping them and kicking their heads in, everything you can do to a person with barehanded combat, I finally defeated them with only CQC after 2 hours in full. From there, the rest of the mission was a joke. I worked my way through the rest of the compound semi-stealthed, nabbed Grampy, and made out like a bandit. Finally, the last skull fight, which again is really only challenging in the game because Gray Fox, I genuinely believe, could wash all the skulls at once by himself. I pretty much just ran back to that first spot, and this time, I destroyed the armor skulls. With minutes, plural, of uninterrupted counters on these guys, I can finally say that I have Skull CQC only mastered to an art. Compared to the 40-minute Mist Skull fight, the hour-and-a-half first armor skull fight, and the 2-hour-long sniper skull fight, this final battle against the skulls only took 30 minutes. Even faster than the Mist unit, and these guys had armor and tried to stall as much as possible. They just got straight up bullied. After that, the game somehow froze except for hair physics, and then just skipped halfway through the cutscene in dead silence. I'm sure that's a good omen. Call me Fortune, cause I'm feeling lucky. Moving on, after wiping out the epidemic at Mother Base, we got Pissy Emmerich to spill the beans, and his bladder, and tell us where Skullface was. And so I head out to OKB-0 for our final encounter. Infiltration here was almost as easy as the smoke grenade truck trick. I just stealth camoed through the base and just barely made it to Skullface completely undetected. One 30-minute cutscene of exposition where Volgin commits Alivant? Maybe? Since we got a reveal from Ocelot that they never found the body, but he never reappeared in any future Metal Gear game that I can remember, followed by a 15-minute cutscene where both the main antagonist, Skullface, and the main protagonist, Gray Fox, just fucking die, except just kidding, they're both alive. And we get Gray Fox vs. Metal Gear Part 2, or I guess Part 0.5. Gray Fox could probably actually solo Sahelanthropus, being that it's an older model than Rex, and I'm convinced that Gray Fox only lost to Metal Gear Rex because he sacrificed himself to save Snake, but the fight here was definitely considerably harder than it would have been lore-wise. I lost 5 times. Once because I got tagged by the stupid insta-kill railgun, which is kind of ironic because the railgun kinda looks like the laser gun Gray Fox used to blow up Rex's Radome, or even similar to the dick laser they put on Rex, replacing Sahelanthropus' flamethrower dick that cut off Gray Fox's arm. Then I got stepped on to death, also ironic, so fucking funny.
Snake, farewell.
Then this fucking piece of shit had the audacity to point-blank range railgun me to death at the end of the fight despite my completely clearing his line of fire because my MAC-10 was empty and I couldn't shoot Psycho Mantis. And then it happened again, and then I just got killed in the fight by normal damage. Fuck me, the MAC-10 is like a fucking pea shooter, doesn't do shit for damage, and every time I run out of ammo or have to reload, I've got nothing to switch to, so it's practically a death sentence. Alright, eventually, I just stopped having skill issues and dropped Sahel to like 2% health, but I ran dry on ammo, and Big Boss's boat took out the white whale while I was on the ammo run. If you get that reference, good shit. We blew Skullface away, captured the Metal Gear so that a repurposed/upgraded version of it can kill me in a couple decades, and put a close to that chapter of the game to start the post-game. I tried to use my upgraded helicopter to Vulcan Cannon Rush to no too much, but I wasn't surviving all that firepower, so I just did it normally, which went as well as it normally does. I knocked out this Walker Gear, got the guy, used the guy to knock out another Walker Gear, then pieced out with the guy. For the pick up the shit that Code Talker left at his dope-ass mansion mission, I actually used the Code Talker mission LZ through the jungle, and it was way faster and better. I used stealth camouflage, got the first container, popped camo again, got the second, and finished in 3 minutes. Spugmay was a little difficult at first because I tried to just rush in and go loud, which didn't work. But after just using my trusty invisibility cloak, I finally got the Lost Media MGSV post game, the island mission where Liquid steals some vials of vocal cord parasite, gets Sahelanthropus, and escapes with Psycho Mantis to go kill me, and dipped. That took less than 3 minutes. Stealth camo is fucking busted. Proxy War Without End was a shit show in comparison to the absolute dominance of the last couple missions, since I was tired of Fultoning armored vehicles, so I just decided to continuously call in bombardments and air support since they're really the only things I can do to a tank short of just equipping explosives, which I arbitrarily decided is more breaking the rules than having to use a Fulton or bombardments because I have no other choice. That made the mission difficult and costly, but I made out just fine, and call a gunship to take out the enemy gunship and make my grand exit for a quiet exit. Being that I unfortunately had to just use bombardments and gunships to clear this final mission as well, again a bit of a disappointing end to such an incredibly fun run, I'll use this time to talk about my experience with this run and plans for the future now that we've finally completed the original 5 runs I'd planned for MGSV, after an entire year and a couple months. So firstly, quite a few people took umbrage with me using the Fulton device in the last run, the Ground Zeroes run, and I completely agree. In hindsight, helicopter extractions at the coast by the cages were a core memory of my time playing Ground Zeroes, so I regret not making a dedicated rule to not use Fultons. To make up for that, I tried to use Fulton extraction as little as possible in this run, though sometimes muscle memory got the better of me. All in all, I really did have fun with this run. Using almost only CQC was a fun new challenge that changed the game in an interesting way that made specifically a lot of boss fights way more interesting and challenging. Using only the 1-star Silent Zev and only sparingly was also a fun touch. Like I would only resort to using a gun in extreme cases or as little as possible. Using the stealth camo for really the first time ever was an awesome experience that really gave me the Gray Fox feel, along with the CQC counters on the skulls and the speed that the suit naturally gives you. The limited arsenal was a fun change from the typical runs I do here, where the arsenal is limited, but not by much as it's typically more about which equipment I use rather than deprivation of fundamental or integral items. And overall, this run really gave me an appreciation of how cool Gray Fox was despite his limited time in the series. He was a badass rival for Snake when he was introduced in Metal Gear, an insanely cool cyborg ninja in his reintroduction in Metal Gear Solid, and the first of the cyborg ninjas that would become a staple of the series. Being a victim of racial discrimination, being a child soldier for Big Boss, being Snake's rival, being Naomi's parents' killer but also her adopted brother, and of course being Proto Raiden, and even saving Snake by sacrificing his life against Liquid and Rex. Fantastic character, and it's no wonder he remains semi-relevant through the entire series despite dying in the first game in the Solid series. Now, as far as where I'm going from here, well, I'm gonna be taking a small break from Metal Gear Solid 5. This isn't so long farewell or anything like that, I just need time to gather up all the challenge run suggestions you guys have left for me, figure out what order I want to do them in, and practice and plan for the runs, all while continuing to upload other content for 2 different channels. It shouldn't take too long, but suffice it to say you guys won't get another run 2 months from now like you have been recently. When I get everything ordered, you'll know that I'm about to start testing and planning and practicing when I release a community post poll asking you guys to choose the order of the runs based on a batch of like 4 options or something, you'll see. For now, that's all for the run. So thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate your support, and the fact that you guys like to watch the content I make makes me feel good. Be sure to like and subscribe for more Metal Gear Solid content, and to keep up with the releases and info and stuff, and maybe even other Metal Gear challenges, seeing as I am now the proud owner of the most recent Metal Gear collection released. This has been, can you beat Metal Gear Solid 5 as Gray Fox? The answer was, yeah, pretty much. And I'll see you guys in the next video, or at least the next Metal Gear Solid 5 challenge run. Peace.